Welcome to the Uncommon CEO podcast, where we unpack the mindset, skills, and wisdom it takes to become an uncommon leader in a common world. With your host, the Uncommon CEO himself, Andrew Smart.
Andrew, what's the latest?
Man, just a great start to the week. Wrapping up this month of April. A lot going on. My kids are wrapping up school. Every day they're trying to tell. They always tell me how many weeks or days they got left.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter in particular. So she's really on the countdown phase of school, and they just finished last week their testing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what happens after schools go through testing, they get a little lax.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, they probably wouldn't like me saying that, but
yeah, you're over the hump at that point. You've done the big stuff. Yeah.
And I was surprised. My kids, they're actually the 25th, 26th, their last day. So, so they don't. I mean, they'll get out right there Memorial Day weekend, and they're done.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty nice. But they're both full of it. They're ready for the summer. Drew is loaded up with. He's doing flag football, which said he's actually about to jump into another league for the month of May. And then they got camps this summer. I mean, it's a busy summer. I mean, kids that are my age, or anybody's got kids. I mean, just a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. I saw he caught his first touchdown on the internet.
He did catch his first touchdown, and he was really upset with his mother.
Why is that?
Because she didn't have it on film.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't like filming everything nowadays anyways. Enjoy what's in front of you.
A 13-year-old boy catching his first touchdown.
Sure, fair enough.
And he's talking about, Mom, you film everything. Why didn't you get that one?
Yeah, I got you.
And I explained to him, I said, look, I saw it. Your mom saw it. Your grandparents saw it. We have memories.
It lives on video up here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I said, I even went on to explain to him, I said, Drew, we didn't have iPhones and stuff when I was a kid. So, that this videoing yourself thing didn't exist then. But no, he's made a point to bring that up to his mother a couple of times.
I imagine so. Yeah.
But they're having fun and growing like weeds, and time's ticking on, man.
Yep, I believe it. I know my wife's a teacher, so she's ready for the school year to wrap up as well. But they go this modified year round, so they'll be in school till early to mid-June. I think she teaches till about the 14th of June, or at least works until then. Kids will be off the week prior, so they go a little longer, but shorter summer, more breaks throughout the year. Kind of works out for them.
Okay. But the family's good?
Yeah, everybody's good, happy, healthy, all that good stuff.
You feeling good?
Yeah, definitely. Feeling better every day.
Good. I'm back in the saddle, working back on my diet, with me being knocked down with what I shared with you on the throat issue. Slowly starting to get back into my workout routine, working my diet back in. The hard part about my diet, and I don't want to make an excuse because my word for this year is discipline, and I've worked on a lot of areas of discipline, and I was doing really good up till this particular deal, and I lost a couple of pounds from being in the hospital, but you gained that back real quick.
Yeah, same thing. I'd lost a few from not feeling too well and not being able to be, eating the way I want to or active or whatever. So so slip right out, slip right back.
I'm back into committed discipline. I was up this morning early. I set my alarm 5:30 in the gym, pushing it, and committed to staying consistent there and really trying to work my diet. And I can tell you, I'm being challenged more on this discipline word right now because I don't have any taste, or my taste is really limited. And it's funny when you go through that surgery, like I shared with you before, you can lose all taste, or you can lose a lot of your taste. And then I've heard from people where they just could taste savory. Well, for me, it's sweet, and that's just like sucks because I mean it's got to be something with like a little sugar for me to taste, and sugar's not good for me.
It's not. Cupcakes are delicious, though. So.
They are delicious. So, but see, that's what y'all aren't sampling those these days.
This is true.
You do have sweet dips.
Yep. We've got
just not on the diet.
Maybe I'll bring you some of the s'mores stuff we've been.
They're not on the diet. They're not on the diet.
Fair enough.
I don't need the additional temptation. But I have. So I've now cut that out because when I was sick, I wasn't eating before, obviously, because my throat hurt so bad. So now I've been eating, and then I'm eating all the things I don't normally eat. And then I get a little pissed off because I'm like, damn it. I committed myself at the beginning of the year to here. So I'm level setting, resetting, getting focused. And, I might not be where I want to be by the time beach season comes along, but I'll be better than I am today.
Well, what it might take, and this I think is where we're headed today, is just a little bit of inspiration to get you over the
Inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, I love inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I love to be inspired. I love to inspire. I feel like, from my faith, God has given me an ability to inspire.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my gifts are being able to stand in difficulties and challenges and encourage people with it. And so I value inspiration. I think we live in a world today that seeks inspiration probably on a level maybe more than ever in history.
Mm-hmm. We need it.
We turn looking for inspiration at every angle, lens. I mean, we want to wake up looking or hearing something that gives us the courage to go out there and be what we believe we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is that I think we live in a world today where there's so much false inspiration.
Tell me more.
I think that we live in a world today where when you have a high level of desperation for inspiration, you're inclined to go look at things that are very shiny,
Mm-hmm.
that are very loud, because you want to be motivated. You want to whatever it is, you want to be encouraged, and so you go to what's the loudest and what's the brightest.
Sure, chasing butterflies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But here's what I know about loud and bright. That if it's loud, there's a possibility that the level of what you need, meaning the voice that's talking, they might be screaming into you, but what are they putting into you? So loud doesn't necessarily mean, correct inspiration. As a child, we go to things that are shiny, right?
Oh, yeah. Every kid loves the shiny objects. If you knew how much my daughter loved glitter and unicorns, I mean, good gracious. So, yeah.
That's what attracts her, right? The glitter, the brightness. So we're attracted to things that we seem bright. But I've shared before that, when you're in the desert, and I shared when you're in like Sahara Desert, I mean, people are going to start as biggest desert, and you're in the desert and you're walking through a desert. And a desert could be a literal desert, metaphor. It could be anything that, but in life, when you're in a desert, okay, you're going through this time of great intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Literal desert's heat intensity. Life has heat intensity. But you're in this desert, you're searching, okay? One, you're trying to get out of the desert.
Sure.
But within the desert, you're searching for things. And when you're going through a life process or a literal, desert, you often can be tricked on an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I bring that up in a desert, an illusion, if you're out in a desert, you often can be tricked that there's an oasis out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Every Bugs Bunny cartoon leads to that oasis, for sure.
And, and what is an oasis? When we look at, obviously in the desert, you're desperate for hydration. You're desperate for what you consider that water we take in to sustain life. But what other ways in our life can we be in the desert and see this oasis? What other things can be an oasis in our life?
I saw a quote, and I'm probably going to quote it wrong, yesterday, that says the value of the lottery isn't the long term. The price of the lottery ticket, or the value of the lottery ticket price, is more the moments of hope you get of planning of what you're going to do with that money, instead of the actual money that comes from it. So it's the value that they're selling you is that 10 minutes of inspiration you get of, if I had $100 million, what would I do with it? That sort of reminiscing you do with your family when the Powerball goes up to $300 million and all that you do with it. So So you're saying you bought a lottery ticket before? Once or twice, yeah. I don't really do it. That's kind of why it stuck with me was, people that buy a lot of lottery tickets are living under this false premise of, unrealistic hope. Hope's definitely great.
Well, they're desperate.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're desperate. And I share a story. It's a great one you brought up there. I very rarely have ever bought a lottery ticket, but I have. Mm-hmm. And it's always been when it's like
Yeah.
extremely high, like
Yeah.
crazy. And most of the times when I'll go fill the car up, or I've and I'm like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the only times that I've bought a lottery ticket. But I can tell you the experiences I've had in buying lottery tickets that have always kind of somewhat broke my heart.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. The people in line scratching right there.
Yes, they're doing it. I've been in gas stations where literally I saw this person over there who just looking at them, you knew that, they didn't have the money to be spending.
Mm-hmm.
But they're over there and they're like filling out their own numbers.
Oh yeah.
They're like so, and in their heart, they're so desperate. They want to believe, I'm either going, my odds of being struck by lightning or, they want to believe it so bad because they're desperate in life to be able to live out these visions of what it would be like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the funny part is, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentaries on the people who win the lottery.
Yeah, or the show Lost. Like, things don't always go well when you win the lottery.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. So often what we're attracted to and what we go to or whatever happens doesn't always work out very well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that tells us that all human beings have a internal nature and maybe a level of desperation of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen, like I told you, I desire to be inspired, but I operate with people every day that they seek to be inspired. But what I found in life, and I'm coming back to this point of where I see us as a society in life, I see a greater desire for inspiration. But I see, as a historian, I see today, while there are people that I think are good people for inspiration, I think today we have either a deficit of people that are qualified
Mm-hmm.
to be good models of inspiration, but I see a plethora of people who are the worst inspiration.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And to me, that's heartbreaking. Because today in our society where we have access to people like no other time in history. I mean, you and I can communicate with people all over the world that you go back not that long ago, we couldn't do.
Oh, yeah. Remember when there were long distance calls?
Yes. I remember when my brother lived in Japan. So this was, I was finishing up college. This would have been 2000, 2001. My brother was living in Japan, and I remember how big a deal it was that my parents got these international call cards.
Mm-hmm.
And the time and the cost to be able to call. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that wasn't that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you fast forward, I remember being in Brussels in 2013 and I remember calling Julie and the kids, except I didn't call because I had Wi-Fi in my hotel, and at that point I could FaceTime.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
So literally, and nowadays, because that I had, just went overseas not that long ago,
Mm-hmm.
Came back and went in the hospital. But that when I was over in the Netherlands and wanted to make calls, there's not that international cost anymore. Matter of fact, Verizon was already. Going over there without any prompt on there to kind of set me up for the international calls. So we've come a long way in our ability to connect, see, get things way outside of our general area. I mean, historically speaking, for most of history, you didn't go out of your general radius of a few miles. You lived your whole life in a general radius of just a few miles. So it's funny how we've grown as a society. But what hasn't changed since the beginning of time is people wanting to be inspired.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And so, I look at, that when you look at the fundamental need for inspiration, it's driven, I think, from a true soul nature of wanting to believe. Mm-hmm. It's why I've always said, we're always inspired when we see movies that are comeback stories.
Yeah.
When we see movies of people who overcome, or came from nothing to achieve greatness. We're inspired because at the end of the day, we want to believe that's us.
Yeah. We want to believe that can be us. Sure.
Yeah. So I wrote down some thoughts on inspiration, man. I wrote down on what I believe is the qualities of an uncommon leader, the qualities of what, a person who is uncommon, how they inspire. Because what I see in common is the poor qualities.
Mm-hmm.
I made a point, that it's the politicians that are great, auditors, the great, the politician who tells you what you want to hear. Politicians are good at that.
Yeah, that's kind of their job in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, they tell us what we want to hear. They tap into an emotional connection and need. But how often do we listen to a politician, give them our vote, but they don't follow through on what they said they'd do?
Pretty often. I think when earlier in the meeting today, we talked about how do you know a politician's lying? If their lips are moving.
Yeah, so, you're right. If they're speaking, they're lying, right? Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate because we need good leaders in politics. But unfortunately, there are too many of them that tell you what you want to hear because they have self-driven ambition and desire. So it's easy to see in politics. We see it in business. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see it nowadays. I mean, we're seeing, where we've got bank issues over here, company issue over here, and such CEO of banks, he might get fired, but he's out the door with a golden parachute.
Yeah.
Him and all the management team, they ran into the damn ground. People who had their deposits, they're over there concerned whether or not they're going to get their money. People lose money, but those people who invested into this company, well, so-and-so who they believed in, they're out the door, they got their money out the door. I mean, we see it everywhere. I mean, we see it. It's not hard to find people, who look one way but act another.
Yeah.
It's just not hard to find. So when you look at what encompasses a true inspirational leader, a true uncommon leader, I've talked about leaders before. I mean, when you look at a Martin Luther King, you would say that's an uncommon inspirational leader, right?
Absolutely.
Driven by a purpose bigger than himself. You've said the same thing about George Washington. If you say, and we can go through a lot of people throughout history. I mean, I shared recently this young man whom I only know through my children. This guy named Mr. Beast.
Oh yes, I've seen Mr. Beast, and my oldest definitely knows all about it.
My son can tell you all about. Matter of fact, I thought I had some information on Mr. Beast that he didn't know because I listened to a little Joe Rogan and Mr. Beast, and I was like, I know something Drew doesn't know. No, he knew it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he's all of a sudden filling me in information. I'm like, darn it. But in that genre and that generation, I mean, they look up to this guy. This guy. For who people don't know him, he at a very young age, I think like 11, he didn't like school very much and didn't achieve very well in scholastics, but he was obviously very intelligent. He figured out how to do a lot of things on YouTube, create videos, content, things that would connect, and kind of continued that process and got better at it. And his mom, obviously, which she has a great relationship with, was very traditional. So she's like, no, you're going to go to school, you're going to go to college. And he ended up going to community college, I think, for maybe a year, semester, something like that. But he didn't go to class. Mm-hmm. He was always working on content with his buddies. And when he got his grades or whatever, his mom was just livid, like she's going to throw him out of the house. But he's done amazing work in YouTube content, building pages. And I mean, it's fascinating to see what he's done. And I heard him in this interview with Joe Rogan about what inspires him. And he's had an inspiration of being able to do this, make this money this way, but give it back. And he gives back, because all this stuff's like charity. It's like give back. And Joe's like, hey, you're making a lot of money. You don't want to kind of, you're not buying out of cars or
treat yourself.
Yeah. And he said, this is profound. For a 23-year-old man to say, given all of what he has accomplished in making, because he has about 100 people working for him, he said there was a short little time where, he's like, I went out and bought me some nice clothes, got me, some good gigs. And he said what's funny is I was living kind of in a, crap place, and he said at that time somebody broke in and stole it all.
Sure.
And he said, I don't live in a place like that. He said, I live in a nice, modest home, but I realized that's not me. That's not what gets me going every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, that was pretty inspiring. I was inspired by a 23-year-old, because here's the funny thing about me, Matt, and I didn't plan on talking about this part, but I'm glad I brought it up. I remember when I started at 23, 24, same age as him, my first business and building business. My inspiration doing it was always about making a difference. And talking about influence, people who have the true heart, honest mindset of influence, they want to do something bigger than themselves, and not about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I started, in business. I wanted to do something that way. I wanted to make a difference, not a dollar, a difference. Now, I also recognize in the journey, dollars help make a difference.
Sure. Doesn't hurt.
I don't think anybody cared about Mr. Beast if, he was making a little content, a few pennies. He's making a difference by connecting with people, but also showing what he values.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know him as a person, but just seeing him through his actions. And that's kind of most of the time when we look at people of influence, we don't really know them as people. We only can judge them by their actions. But we also work every day and we associate with people who influence our lives. And the people we're closest to, we kind of know them by their actions also, right?
Yeah, all the time. You're sort of defined by your actions.
You absolutely are defined by your actions. And I've been associated in my life too many times where people look good on the outside, but who they are on the inside isn't worth it. And so I've said this before, there are people who on the outside look so buttoned up. They look like, these people have it all together. They're all right. They're all righteous. They think, but inside they wouldn't stand up for you. They wouldn't really care about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you something to your face, and then but they wouldn't associate with you really. So I've seen people who really they are that fake influence. I want to talk about characteristics of good leadership influence. What I think some of the biggest uncommon things today. When we look at an uncommon leader, one of the things that we look at is what is their attitude for caring about me? What is that attitude? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, what is their attitude towards serving my needs? When you look at, I've heard John Maxwell say this before. You go anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, when you have leadership in people, the number one thing people are going to say, hey, how can you help me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you serve me? Because before I can serve you, I want to know how you can serve me. And then they're all, in the same statement, they're saying, not just serve me, do you value me?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all want to be valued. And so the attitude is critical. What is the ultimate attitude towards truly serving? Is it real? And so I think that's one of the main things looking at, what's someone's attitude towards their influence. I also think about influence is also about affirmation. Okay. I like to think, Matt, I got a little bit of influence over you.
Yeah, I would think so. CEO of our company.
Yeah, I think by the nature of our roles and where we are in the company, but I also think that while I will challenge you, I want to believe that I also affirm you.
I would say so. I think in leadership, you have to affirm those because people seek affirmation whether they want to admit it or not. And affirmation is inspiring in its nature.
We all seek affirmation sometimes to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's too often what I've said from children who grow up sometimes single parent, whatever situation. Sometimes we don't even have. We all seek different affirmation. it's why I've said that in our society too often, that whether you're a mom, when you've had to play both roles, it's hard to be both in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because you can't. A mom can only truly affirm at the best of her ability in the way the mom is wired, right? I mean, she's not, she can't be a dad, and unfortunately, too many women have been dads and moms. But it doesn't mean the child doesn't seek affirmation. It's like a young girl wanting affirmation from some male.
Yeah, or her peers.
Or peers.
Teachers.
Look, I deal with my daughter. It's funny. My daughter's wonderful as can be, but often when I'm talking to him and Julie will come up to me and talking about, well, so-and-so was friends this week, and they're not,
yeah.
And I'm like, good Lord, I just saw them hanging out. And so, it's so we all desire affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
It is, we want to know that we're valued and affirming that what we do matters, and ultimately that we matter. We all desire it.
Yeah.
And so, on top of affirmation, when you look at inspirational people, you want to know, when you say they care, okay, what level of care can you have if you're not attentive?
Not a whole lot.
Have you ever gone to the doctor and you're waiting a while in the doctor's office? You finally get to the back into the room there, and the doctor finally comes in, but he's there like 2 seconds.
Yeah, that happens. Feels like about half the time.
And when you're in that, and the doctor, like, he's flipping the chart, blah, 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 I'm out there. He just, how's that make you feel?
Well, you're already vulnerable to be there. You've chosen, like, I don't feel my best, or I want to be better. And, like with your physical, you might not be feeling bad to go there, but you want the time spent to say, I'm here for you as a professional to help me. So,
and you're dealing, whether it's just some type of flu or you're dealing with the commodity of your body. And you're like, if the doctor is in and out in like 2 seconds, it's like, wow, I don't feel loved or cared for, do you?
Yeah, the bedside manner, you've got to get that back from your doctor. It's a give and a take.
You think that they're more about churning numbers than they are about value. And so, interesting enough, the doctor group that I go to today, one of the reasons I signed up with them years ago when they first came to Greenville is because it's concierge medicine. It was about, kind of buying into a membership. And I remember distinctly how they sold me on this. They said, what's the level of value you put to your overall health? And they said, here's what people spend every month on television.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take that number and you apply, it's basically the same cost of a monthly membership deal. And it's about people where they put their values. And I thought, this is great. And I started going. And I go there to this day. But it was like night and day difference of attentiveness.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where, my doctor, I'm like, man, I love you, but I got to go.
Yeah. Good.
How many times can you say that with a doctor?
Those are good problems to have. Yeah.
And while they're still good at it, I think that they have, they had a model where you can only take on so many patients.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've kind of expanded that model a little bit. Yeah. They're still good at it. So I don't want to sit there and tell you they're still great at it. But boy, when I first started, I was like, man, I got things to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was sitting in the waiting room. It was like, Doc, I got to go here.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt, where I kind of want to wrap up of uncommon inspirational leaders is that they're available, meaning that you can have access to them, and they're authentic. Now, I speak to the availability. Recently, we're coming into this season of campaigning. People wanting to be president. I think this is going to be a very interesting time going into 24 with the presidential race. I've seen where on both sides there is people putting their hat in, the desire, but with it also becomes all the the inspiration and negativity. And I heard of one candidate that is not in the race yet, but is kind of a front runner on the Republican side. And one of the things that was said about him was that he's not available. Which I found interesting, actually, because there's a lot of positive things that are said about this particular candidate. But it was interesting to hear about availability. And so I think in leadership and in uncommon leadership, they're people that understand I got to be available. I got to be accessible. And if you're not available and accessible to your team, I mean, I've made a point, if I got a member of my team calling me, I'm going to answer. And if I don't answer, I'm going to reply back, with a text saying, "Hey, can I call you right back?" Or, is there anything you can text me that you need? I want to make sure that they know that I'm available, that I'm here to meet their needs. I mean, I know I called you many times, but if you call me, I get back to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that you've got to be available to your people, and they got to know that you're available. And that availability is critical, but I think the most critical thing is about being authentic. Authenticity is a word today that is hard to find in people.
Oh yeah, I think out of my friend group, I think I have a pretty authentic group of friends, but you can really tell when somebody's authentic. The way they talk, the way they carry themselves, the way the candor they bring to your relationship. That's also important.
I believe it. And I'll give you a person. I brought his name up before, but I watched a recent interview with this person. He's not a politician. He's a business guy. He's second richest guy in the world. I mean, I was watching an interview with Elon Musk last week. And it was really discussing this whole AI thing. Which we can get into a conversation sometime about this AI thing, because man, that is like, holy cow, that's some weird, crazy stuff. I mean, it's been a topic of discussion with friends and family that on this AI stuff. I mean, there are people that are freaked out, scared to death. There are people like when I was watching Elon, he was like, hey, I think we need to slow this thing down. And I didn't know this. You're familiar with Chat GP?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that he was basically one of the original founders of it.
I didn't realize that either.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
And it was a nonprofit deal that supposedly they created to kind of combat something Google was doing. He's not a big fan of Larry Page.
Okay, interesting.
They used to be friends, and it kind of surrounded around this idea, of AI. And like I said, I don't want to get too much into that, but what I loved about the interview and what I loved about listening to him, whether people like him or not, I thought the guy, he comes across very authentic. That he believes in what he says. He might, but he sure comes across as very authentic. He was like a guy, I said this to someone, I said, when you see somebody like, God, I just like to hang out with him. Just gotta be like a cool guy to hang out with. And I think authenticity, looking authentic, you want to hang around people who are authentic. People that are genuine, people are real. Matter of fact, I think he was doing this whole interview and sipping on a bourbon or whiskey in the whole thing. I mean, it was kind of like, that's kind of a genuine dude. And he made a statement. They were talking about space and aliens and all these kind of things. And he was kind of laughing. He's like, he said, if anyone probably should know anything about aliens, I think I would be kind of on the list.
Yeah.
People. And he said, and he made this comment that I just died laughing, where he said, think about this. He said, we've seen no, evidence of aliens, but he said, think about defense budgets. He said, if somehow one day I just pulled an alien out and went, hey, here's an alien.
Yeah.
He said, there'd be like, whatever the defense budget needs to, and he's right. I mean, if there were real proofs of aliens, I'm sure we'd be like putting a lot of money to figure out what these guys are doing.
Yeah, we don't want Independence Day to happen.
Correct, correct. But I say, the point of influence and authenticity must go hand in hand. if you're going to be a true, genuine leader, you have to be authentic. Let people know what you truly believe and who you really are. I'm not a perfect guy. Matt, how many times in meetings and times together where I've shared personal things about myself, difficulties I've gone through, failures that I've made, okay? I've done it because I believe in being authentic with the team. And I've heard it said many times, hey, you probably shouldn't share those things because often when you do share things with people also use them against you. But I'd rather be an authentic person, an open person, rather a closed off, person. So be authentic. If you want to be uncommon and you want to be impactful, you got to be authentic.
Thanks for joining us today on the Uncommon CEO podcast. Subscribe to our show wherever you get podcasts. We have video episodes on our YouTube channel and more uncommon wisdom on our social media. Find all our links and resources at uncommonceopodcast.com. For Andrew Smart and all of us here at the Uncommon CEO, stay uncommon.